What's going on, folks? Welcome back to Synthwave and Chill. Michael Oakley has a new album that dropped. So I figured, you know what? Let's see if we could talk to him. I'm playing my Game Boy a little bit. Well, was waiting for him to get on. Once he joined, I figured it should be nice to ask him some random questions. I think it's a new thing I want to start, is trying to talk to some synthwave artists and ask them 7 random questions. So once he gets on here. All right, here he is. What's going on, Michael Oakley? How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you, sir?
I am good, thank you very much. So you just came out with a new album. Before I start firing random questions at you, can you, what is the name of your album that just came out?
So the new album is called Odyssey. It's just came out yesterday, actually. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been almost 2 years of writing, developing it, and just making sure it all sounded the way that I wanted, because I'm kind of notoriously bad for spending a little bit too much time on things, but I'm a control freak, so I just can't help it.
I could understand that. All right, so I thought it would be fun because I'm pretty sure everybody's asking you all the same questions all the time, and I kind of wanted to just ask you maybe 7 different things that you probably haven't been asked before, or at least in a long time, just to give some people that might know who you are and like your music, like a better understanding of, who is Michael Oakley.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so the first question that I'm gonna ask is, what is the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
Biggest lesson that I've learned so far in music or life?
Let's go with life.
Whoa. I'm so deep, I'm being pulled down. The biggest lesson that I've learned in life. Well, that's quite a big question. Biggest lesson that I've learned in life is probably not to get too, I know this probably gets a little bit sort of Buddhisty, but probably not to get too attached to things, probably. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean people and things. It just means even ideas, you know what I mean? Like, especially I always relate it to music or sports. That's usually the 2 things that I sort of find metaphors in, I suppose. So getting attached to ideas, because sometimes I'm working on a song, for instance, an idea, and something's not working, but that doesn't mean that the idea itself isn't good. It just means that you have to take it in another direction. So I guess you could say, have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing. That would be my best lesson.
All right, I'm gonna have to remember that and write that down, put that on a shirt somewhere.
A Hallmark greetings card.
Okay, so that's question number 1. Let's go question number 2.
Okay.
What personality trait do you wish you could automatically adopt?
What personality trait do I wish that I could adopt? I don't know, because I'm so unpredictable at times. I don't know. It's like that's a good one, because I can be very different one day to the next. So, what personality trait do I wish I could adopt? See, it's one of those funny things, though, isn't it? I mean, it's like, if I said, more confident, then I would be devaluing, how, like, a lack of confidence can actually help you, because it makes you so frustrated that you think, fuck, I need to get better at this. Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes your negative traits are the things which make you want to change in order to find a better version of yourself. So I would probably say nothing. I would say,
all right, not applicable, huh?
I'm happy with my flaws and all.
All right. So let's go with question number 3. What's the best dream you've ever had?
Now that is a tough one because I very rarely remember my dreams. But it's funny though, isn't it, with dreams, because you forget them. But then if you have a recurring dream, when you wake up immediately, you're like, I've had that dream before. Like, you know how people talk about deja vu and things like that. Like I've had dreams before which actually happened like years later. It's such a weird thing because it wasn't like it was something significant. If you know what I mean, it wasn't like some magical event like I dreamt I got married and then years later I got married. It's something stupid like, I was standing outside the shop and someone's dog was at the outside tied up, and I just sort of like petted the dog or whatever, and then that was it. That was the deja vu, and you're like, what the hell does that mean? How is that even relevant? But I remember I mentioned that before to my wife, and she said, sometimes those things are an indication that you're on the right path. So
All right.
maybe.
All right.
Maybe.
I can see that. Yeah. I mean, it's great. These aren't really yes or no answers. They're just how they apply to your life,
Yeah, these are good because you really are catching me off guard. So I'm sort of like, okay, okay.
All right. Let's go with, what was that? 3. So 4 now. What's the best thing you've ever eaten?
I've eaten a lot of good food. I'll be honest. I'm a foodie. I have I love pizza. I'm a big
Okay.
pizza.
What was the last best thing you've ever eaten?
I do you know something? I can tell you what the greatest thing that I ever had was. It was with my best friend. We went out and we had burgers at a place in Scotland. It was like one of those like really fancy hotels, that, ooh, yes, those kind of hotels. And the burger, like it was one of those like $50 burger type places. But the
Okay.
thing was, it was the nicest burger that I had ever had, and even my friend said that. It was just the way it was cooked, it just everything about it. It just, you felt like, I feel like I'm eating $50 here. Yeah, it's just, do you know what I mean? It was like one of those things where it was like I didn't feel lighter in my wallet for paying $50 for the burger.
You didn't leave that whole like, I got ripped off, this is ridiculous. You were like, wow,
No,
this was worth
not in this
every bit
case.
of it.
No, not in this case, because it was like, you know what? Now I understand why, people go out to like really, really, really fancy 5-star Michelin restaurants like once every year or 6 months for, just for the experience, because it's a different level. It was one of those funny things as well, but where it was one of only 2 places that I've ever been to where there was a member of staff called a sommelier, the person who basically is a wine expert and who will look at what you're having for dinner and recommend to you what the best
Marion?
wine that you should have with your meal. So that was quite interesting when this person came over and was like, yes, I think you should have the Oakwood red wine. And you're just like, nah, I'll just have a Pepsi, thanks. Oh, we don't serve Pepsi here, it's only Coke. Like, oh, fine, whatever. No ice. No ice, please.
Wow. So basically, from you being a foodie, the best thing you've ever ate was a hamburger.
A very special. It was like the nicest prime Angus beef that I had ever tasted before. It was fantastic. It was
Okay.
fantastic. And saying that though, I've been to somewhere before where we had a wonderful dinner, and then when we had, it was like a sort of not as fancy, but a nice, really nice restaurant. And then when it came to having the dessert, so we had this lovely meal with steak, and then when it came to the dessert, it was like a peach cheesecake. and then on the side there was like whipped cream, but the whipped cream was off. And I don't know if you've ever tasted, out of date off whipped cream. It was like that way where the rest of the night, myself, the same person actually, my best friend, we went out to this place as well because we used to work together in weddings, in the wedding industry, playing in a band and singing. That's what I used to do before doing my own thing. And we had that experience, and all night when we were singing, we were looking at each other like, I can still taste that off cream. That is fucking horrible. Oh, do you know what I mean? It was horrible. So that's the two sides of the coin, really.
Wow. Went all the way back up and then brought you right back down.
Like life. Just like life.
All right. So question number 5. What place would you travel to if you could teleport? What place would you first travel to if you could teleport?
I would go back home to see my family and my friends, and then I would teleport to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I've been there 3 times. I love that place. But yes, I would go back to Glasgow, where I come from, just because I've not been there for 3 years now, just to see everybody, and then I'd love to go back to Amsterdam in Holland.
I have yet to visit those places, so I really need to go overseas and check them out.
Oh, Amsterdam is such a beautiful city. It's just a wonderful place. I know obviously a lot of people go there because it's cannabis is legal there, and it's a lot of tourism for that. But it's a very beautiful city. It's somewhere where if you go there, hire a bicycle, because it's so kind of small in the map of that main kind of area of Amsterdam that you can just cycle around and see everywhere. It's a beautiful place, lovely city.
I need to check it out. I really do. All right. So question number 6. When was the last time you can remember feeling totally at peace?
Yesterday when my album came out. I was relieved. Yeah, and that's not a lie. I genuinely, I feel like when I've been working on music like that, and I'm trying to get everything finished for the album, finishing the songs, noticing if there's any mistakes or anything that annoys me, and then I have to go back and fix it. And then just we've agreed on the date that the album comes out, arranging it, interviews and all the press stuff. And like there's a part of me that's kind of like, I can't relax until the album's out. But not only that, I can't work on new music until that album's out as well. I have this kind of thing where in my brain, it's like I'm still in that album's world. And then when I release it and it's out there, I get to almost say, thank you, goodbye. And then I get to think, now that's good. I can now work on a completely new direction, because I'm always looking ahead thinking, I wonder what I could do next. Where would I go? What would the next Michael Oakley album sound like? And the way it sort of starts off in my head at the beginning is usually very different to where I end up. So it's kind of, I'm just charting a direction. But yeah, so I would say that yesterday was the was the last time I felt the peaceful.
Okay, well, I'm happy for you. All right, so the last question we got.
Okay.
Let's go with
if you've got a few, you should just do a quick fire round.
no, I'm just trying to
60 seconds to answer as many questions as possible. Quick fire round.
Okay, here we go. What's your when is the last time you threw up and why?
When was the last time I threw up?
Yeah.
Do you know what, this is going to be a really good story actually, because the last time that I threw up was in Long Beach, California, and it was the second time that I had traveled to Los Angeles, and I was going over there to stay with my friend James. And it was also the very, very first time that I ever met my wife, you see. So we went and I met her, and then we went out that night for dinner. And it's funny how, when you remember these things, but I had the chicken pot pie. Big mistake, because you don't know what, it could just be an accident or what, if it hadn't been cooked properly. Who knows? I'll never know. Anyway, so I was violently ill, throwing up, being sick, and I tell you, something, although it was a horrible experience being, ill with essentially food poisoning, the thing was that it was quite interesting, because I had just met, my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time. We just sort of started to it was the first time we'd met each other. We'd spoken to each other for quite some time before that. And then when we met and that happened, she looked after me. And that was the thing that made me realize, you know what, that's someone that really cares. When you think about when you're at your worst, and I know that's obviously a crude example, but just silly things like that. If someone shifts into caring about you like that, that makes you think, you know what, that's a special person. So if anything, that was one of the things which, obviously, I already loved her by that point, but it was something that just was like, you know what, that's heartwarming to see. I'm violently ill in the bathroom here, but she's just looking after me.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that moment came into a positive for you.
There's always a positive. Always, only if you're looking for it, though.
That's true. That is true. Can't forget that aspect. All right. Well, that was the 7 questions. Thanks for indulging me with that. Before we say goodbye, though, I want to give you the chance to talk about your album a little bit and what people can expect if they haven't heard it, things of that nature.
Yeah, well, the new album's called Odyssey. It's quite a progression from my previous work. Certainly, I got to explore some 90s sounds, as well as, my kind of retro-y sort of sound that I have. It allowed me to move into that sort of zone a little bit as well. It's a little bit more exotic, is maybe the right word. It's quite tropical sounding. And I also worked a lot with Ollie Ride. He's obviously a great friend of mine. We just love working together. Dana Jean Phoenix is also on the records. Mecca Michael, Brother Tiger. It's a very different record. I think I would say it's probably my most mature sounding album, I think. There's been a real emphasis on the songwriting. I always do that, but I feel like with this one, it's hard for me to describe, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. Do you know what I mean? I like to keep people interested. Don't like to repeat the same ground that I've covered before.
I hear you.
So yeah, it's a lot of different moods. I always describe my albums as being like a tapas menu. You know what I mean? You get to pick and choose. There's all these different little small dishes, 4-minute dishes of different types of foods and whatnot. Here we're back to the food analogy.
And that.
It's one of those things. I like to create different moods on an album. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that's kind of lost a little bit in modern albums. The lost art of an album taking you on a journey, and you feel differently through the whole process of all the different songs. I used to get that with Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel. So I tried to do that.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I totally understand what you mean. There are some albums that you play them from start to finish and it sounds like one long song.
Yeah.
I mean, that in itself, it's, for each their own. But so I could understand what you mean by going through like a musical journey with different things here and there.
Yeah, I mean, especially with song, I think, because for me, whenever I'm writing a song, the music is kind of the four walls, the wallpaper, the bed, and the atmosphere of the room for what the song's about. So you whatever you're talking about in the song has to sort of be reflected, by the emotional impact of the music. So depending on what you're talking about, the music has to really, I guess, emotionally punch those lyrics into someone's consciousness. And
Like when you use those bagpipes in your song, in your Glasgow song.
well, yeah, that's so funny because that could have went either way. I think it was an idea that I had, and I decided to explore it. And at first, it didn't really work. It was quite a hard one to tame because bagpipes are so obnoxious. They're really in your face, and it's hard to sort of make them sort of sound that kind of melodic way. But the guy that I got to play, Lorne McDougall, I asked him, I said, look, I really want this to be more understated. I don't want it to feel like an advert for Scotland. Do you know what I mean? I want it to sort of be more of a melodic impact. And so I added those military drums over the top of it and the guitar, and found a way to kind of balance it so that it was a lot more moody, but it was, it wasn't apologetic either. Yeah, I'm quite big on trying things out. If they work, they work. If they don't, you can always fling it out. You know what I mean? You've got to take the chance. Fortune favors the bold, as they say.
I hear you. I like that. Yeah, that's true though. It is really true. And I know, like when I first heard that, listening to that here on Synthwave and Chill, I was like, that was such a good idea. That sounded so good. It came out really well.
No, thank you. I think because I'm Scottish as well, I can get away with it.
Well,
It's funny. There was one comment that was so funny, and because obviously when the song comes out on New Retrowave, I have a quick look at through the comments and stuff, and one person said, "This sounds really great, but." I bet neither Michael or Dana have ever even been to Scotland. I was just like, fuck you. I'm from Glasgow. What? Okay. But it's like, you get these comments, and if someone is flinging shade at you, it's usually got nothing to do with you or the music. It's usually got something to do with their own little sort of prejudicial hang-up. Yeah, so it's quite funny, It's someone hated one of my songs because I had a DeLorean in it. It was just like, all right, so because there's a DeLorean car in this song, this stops you from enjoying the song. Okay, whatever.
It's kind of really hard to. It's really hard to kind of understand somebody's logic with that,
Yeah, I think it's probably the thing of the security of being behind the screen and just sort of typing text out into the void, and they don't really appreciate that there's other human beings at the other side of that are going to read that and connect in whatever way they respond to it. And I guess it's a very safe way of flinging a dish. You wouldn't do that in front of your friends because you'd get a slap off of one. One of your friends would be like, who are you talking to? And they'd put you in your place. But because it's the internet, nobody's going to put you in your place.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I hear you. Well, Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us here on Synthwave and Chill. I'm sure we are all looking forward to checking out your album. And if you've checked it out already, let us know in the comments what your favorite track is. Michael, thanks again for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to hear you in your album shortly.
Well, there you go. No, I'll be interested to see what you think of it. I kind of feel like I've been someone that's very vocally critical, probably of the scene a little bit, just because I'm trying to encourage people to, push and pull more influences. If you like trance music, pull that into the genre. You know, if whatever you like, pull that in, because you know you're trying to shape your own identity within the music. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of safe music where people just sort of hear Time Cop 1983 and they hear the Midnight, and it's very safe for them to try and copy that, and they never ever have their own identity within that because it's someone else's idea from the get-go. So I'm always trying to, you know, encourage people to you know what I mean, take chances, because that's what pays off in the end. Taking risks is, that extra mile is never crowded, so you want to take risks.
It's a good piece of advice. Good piece of advice. All right. Thanks, Michael, for that.
No, thank you. One thing I was going to say to you as well. I saw one of your videos. You asked about the vampires.
Uh-huh.
So the vampires reference in Is There Anybody Out There is a reference to when I was, 16, 17 years old. Me and my friends used to go out at night, and we used to smoke cannabis and take drugs, and you know, the vampires references because we were out at night with red eyes walking around, taking drugs and doing our thing, and just looking for other people like us that were into the same types of thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's that's the reference. I thought, because I saw the video and I thought I'll make a mental note to let them know, because it sort of changes the whole dynamic of that lyric, I think, when you think of it in terms of that, you know, because that whole drug culture thing was quite big back when I was a kid in Scotland. You know, it was very, very big, and the two sides of that song are, you know, getting involved in that and then looking for other people to do that with, but then taking it too far and looking for people to pull you out of it, because you know you've taken it too far and you've got lost in it, and then you need people who are not into it, that are outside of it, to pull you out. And that's the kind of two sides of that song, you know, the kind of the lyric about maybe my daddy was right all along, because my dad used to say, you're taking that too far, you're going to take, and I was like, aye, fuck off, whatever. But he was right, you know.
Well,
You
that's
don't realize until you
that's
find out
pretty
for
big of
yourself.
you to admit that now.
Well, you know, you don't see it at the time, but you know, you do know. You're too proud to admit it at the time.
That makes sense.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, then now I'm gonna have to listen to that again to understand that lyric there. But I appreciate you getting back to me on that one.
Hey, no, absolutely. No, I love the channel. It's always interesting to see someone's interpretation of a song, because it's always different. You know, you have five people listen to the same song. It's funny because they'll always see themselves in the song initially. If they relate to it, it will be something to do with themselves, and that will be the thing which dictates that kind of fictional attachment to that song in the journey of when they listen to it. So I always love hearing someone's um, sense of what they feel the song's about. It's quite interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries. Well, listen, thank you for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it, and yeah, let me know if there's anything else I can ever help you with.
All right. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.